Hello, Christopher Brent here, coming to you today with a musical podcast where I will be asking the question, is the piano an easy instrument to learn? So I'm a piano teacher, a music educator, and a pianist from Michigan here in the United States, and believe it or not, I get asked this question a lot. So let's break it down. Let's talk about this. Is the piano an easy instrument to learn? So my simple answer is yes. Compared to other instruments, there are some aspects that are easier. So let's talk about that first. One area that comes to mind right away is the issue of intonation. When you play the piano, you don't have to worry about playing in tune the way you would when you're playing another instrument. When you're singing, you do have to worry about whether you are singing the pitch in tune. When you're playing the trumpet, you do have to worry about whether you are playing the pitch in tune. So obviously intonation applies to many other instruments. So this is not the case when you're playing the piano. So in that regard, it's a little bit easier. From an educational perspective, the piano is great. All of the notes are laid out in front of you from lowest to highest, left to right. All of the notes are there. That's not the case when you're playing the trumpet. Not to pick on the trumpet, I'm not trying to do that. I think the trumpet is a beautiful instrument. But you have your valves, and that's it, right? You have the bell and the valves right there, and you have to obviously navigate around the instrument that way. And it's not the same visually, right, when you're playing the trumpet as it is when we're talking about the piano. So you can see things visually on the piano that you may not be able to see when you're playing other instruments. When you're playing the guitar, you have 6 strings and the fretboard, and you can't necessarily see things as clearly. And that's why playing the piano can be such a benefit from just a musical, educational perspective. So I think that's really, really important to look at. So there's 2 areas right there. Now, where are the challenges when it comes to playing the piano? Because every instrument will have challenges. There's no doubt about that. There's no free ride, right? You do have to practice. You do have to apply yourself no matter what instrument you are studying. So when it comes to playing the piano, you have to play with 2 hands at the same time. You have to read 2 clefs. You have to read it, usually a treble clef and a bass clef on the grand staff, and you have to sight read that, right? 2 clefs at the same time. That's not easy, and you have to play 2 hands at the same time. Okay, that's going to be a challenge, right? However, there's a certain application of finger pressure that you have to use when you're playing other instruments, such as the guitar or maybe the violin or the cello or something like that. And some people really talk about how difficult that is. People come to me and say, I tried playing the guitar and I just couldn't get the pressure aspect, or I couldn't get the calluses on my fingers, and I really just could not get the chord changes to happen, and I just couldn't make it happen. Is it easier to play the piano? And in some ways, yes, you don't have to apply finger pressure in the same way. I think if you actually do that on the piano, you can end up just developing too much tension, and that's not a good thing. So in that regard, it's going to be a little bit easier. So when it comes to playing the piano, a certain challenge that is going to come into play, as I was mentioning before, is obviously the fact that you're going to have to play with 2 hands at the same time, but you will also have to use your foot to play the pedal, which is usually going to be the damper pedal on the right. So you're going to be doing 3 things at once. So it does require some coordination, and that's going to be a challenge there. So there's challenges, but yes, in some ways the piano is a little bit easier. So I think if you're someone who's thinking of studying an instrument, the piano is a great instrument, because even if you do get some good technique and you develop as a pianist and you have some interest in another area or another instrument, you can branch out. And that's what I did. I studied the piano first, and I got a good sense of musical education from it and understanding about musical concepts, and I was able to branch out, and I later played percussion. I played percussion and drums in both a symphony orchestra. I played timpani and snare drum and crash cymbals and bass drum and all of the percussion instruments, really. And then I also played drums, drum set, in a few local jazz groups as well doing that. I eventually did a lot more with piano, but I was able to easily navigate my way into the percussion element because I had such a strong piano background, and that helped me when it came down to studying xylophone, bells, and marimba, and all of that. So study the piano because you can use that as a bridge to other instruments, and I think that's really important. So if you're a young person, I would advise you to study the piano first and then get some understanding technically and musically there, and then you can branch out to another instrument. And most of the time, teachers are teaching young piano students how to read music, both treble clef and bass clef, so you can go in many different directions that way. And then when you get to your next instrument, you'll already know how to read those clefs, and that will make it so much easier, and you'll be able to go so much faster. So in some ways, yes, the piano is going to be a little bit easier, so take advantage of that. There will be plenty of challenges, especially as you get into more intermediate and advanced repertoire, so be aware of that as it comes with any instrument. So like I said, they all have their challenges, every instrument in their own way, and I think you have to look into your soul and look at your personality and see what instruments suit you best. So for me, piano and percussion certainly suit me well. I just love the sound of the piano, obviously, and I have a sense of groove and rhythm, and that certainly translates over to percussion, right? Because if you're not good at rhythm, maybe percussion is not the instrument for you. Maybe if you are someone who feels the melodic aspect or the phrasing element more, or the lyrical aspects of music, maybe becoming a vocalist would be a good thing. Not to say that vocalists don't have good rhythm, but it's just the areas of emphasis that I'm talking about here. Obviously, if you are a percussionist, rhythm is going to be a huge emphasis. So that's what you got to look at when you're picking an instrument, right? So if you have questions about this, please email me. I would love to try to help. My email address is chrisbrentmusic@gmail.com. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, check out some of my other podcasts and some of my other performance videos and instructional videos, and check out my website at www.christopherbrent.com. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.